What is up, guys? Ganzor here. Um, yeah. Man, I always suck at these intros. Oh well, I guess that's not my thing. So, this is another drawing video, you may have noticed. But if not, that's okay. I didn't either. um, I have had an idea in my head for a while for a comic book idea, or comic book something. And I have been trying to bring it to life recently, and I've made a lot of changes, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is composition. Composition is the way that an artist takes the lines on the paper and uses it to interpret an idea and to interpret three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface. So, it's things like perspective and distance and proportion and, things like that. I am not an expert in composition. I am not an expert in art or anything because I'm still learning. I'm still a student, and I still have to go to school to learn all of this. However, I have learned quite a lot from people on YouTube that are awesome, which I left a link to in my last video. I think I put 4 or 5 people in there that have awesome, super awesome videos. And if you should go check out their stuff if you need art help, because my stuff is still elementary, my dear Watson. But anyways, I'm going to be doing this video about composition, and I'll probably be doing a follow-up video for this as well, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Oh, I just put my mic in my mouth. That was lovely. So yes, this is a comic book idea. It's set in the future, but it's like a wasteland type setting. It's very desert-esque, and there are these hubs of civilization that have survived through the nuclear post-apocalyptic end-world crisis, and everywhere else is dead and dirt, and there is nothing there except for mutated creatures and demon-like people that try to kill you with guns. That's pretty much the sum of the story. Yeah, I have gone from there, but I won't be going to the nut in this video because that's not what it's about. This that you're looking at right now, I should explain what it is. This is the first sketch that I drew. You can see the main character of the story standing here. He has this trench coat jacket, and he's carrying a sword. And then you can see this town off in the quote-unquote distance. I'll get to that in a second. And then there's this shack over here with some sort of strange plant. There's these rock walls over here. And then if you can't tell, there's this line. Whoops, I should get a black color so I can... Actually, I'll get a red color. There we go. There's this... man, technical difficulties. There's this line that goes across here. And that is what I call the wall. It's pretty much a giant wall that they built to keep out the monsters and keep in the people. But anyways, this is the first sketch that I drew. This is a scan. I drew this on actual paper. Excuse me there. However, this is a terrible drawing. Now, don't let that demote you if this is, grand to you. I'm just saying, compared to what I have learned in the past few months, I did not do a very good job portraying the idea of this image here. And if this is the maximum of your capabilities, then that's great. And if this is even beyond that, then that's still great. As long as you're practicing, it doesn't matter where you are. You just... it's art, right? So I'm not trying to say that to make anyone feel bad about themselves. I'm just saying that compared to this next one that I've drawn in my eyes, this one is not so great. But yes, so you see, this is the basic composition of this image. Now, a while back, I drew this one in, oh dear, the beginning of October, I believe. So about a month later, I've come back and redrawn this scene with better composition technique behind the idea that I'm trying to portray. So I will put that up now. Alright, so here we go. This is the new and improved version. And you can see it's quite different, but it's still essentially the same, right? You have this town, or this city here, you have the rock walls, you have the leading character, this shack over here, right? The wall back here. You still have all those essential elements, but it's vastly more complex, right? That is because excuse me there, I had to clear my throat. That is because I have implemented the techniques that I've learned over the past month in composition to portray that this scene, in fact, is not drawn on a piece of paper, but to portray the idea that this place could be real somewhere, that it could actually exist. It feels like someone else besides this dark shaded character could walk into the scene and become part of it. And looking at this now, even it's about a week after I drew this, but looking at it now, I can still see things that I could fix in this that are not the way that I would draw them now. Simply because I messed up. I drew this in pen, so it's kind of hard to fix that. But anyways, I will explain to you what I changed and why. So if we come back to this first one, I can actually make them parallels, I believe. Zoom out a little bit here, like such. There we go. Now I can take this one and where did it go? Oh, it's right in front. Well, that's not really what I wanted to do. There we go. Alright. I can minimize all of my tabby thingies. All of my palettes. Boop. Boop. Alright. And zoom out here a little bit. Make this a little bit bigger. And now we can see both of these in parallel. There we go. Alright, so this is the old one here and the new one here. Alright, so the probably most prominent thing that I have changed in the two is the shading. If you realize in this, or if you'll notice in this first one, everything is more or less the same color, right? It's all this same kind of gray. Of course, I have these scribbles that are indicating the clouds, and this scribble that's indicating the wall slightly, and like his hair is a darker color. But you look at these rocks here, and you look at these buildings here, and they're essentially the same color. And that's something that is very, very bad for composition. If you look at an object right up next to you, it's going to have a very full saturation. It's going to be very dark in terms of its color. And then if you move that object 100 meters away, it's going to appear lighter because of atmosphere. So in this image, I have fixed this. You'll notice this rock here is much darker than it was over in this first image, and then these rocks here are lighter because they're farther away, and then the wall is the farthest away, so it's pretty much just white. But then of course there are exceptions, like this guy is dark because he's in a shadow. I want him to seem mysterious, so I can not ignore but improvise that rule a little bit to get my point across. But then you look at this plant here that is very, very dark because I want to portray that it's right in front of the camera. However, that's one of the problems that I'm seeing now. But I'll go into that in a little bit. Yes. Okay. So the next thing that I noticed that I fixed between these is that here, we're looking at the first picture, you see this line right here, more or less, right here, right? And that is the horizon line. There's no doubt, right? This cactus falls on it. All the buildings seem to fall on it. The shack does. His feet do. These rocks do, right? Everything is landing on the horizon, which isn't wrong. Like, technically, if you took a photograph, you could have a shot where this is happening. However, since we're not taking a photograph, we're drawing, when I've done this and everything is on this same horizon line, it doesn't appear as though he's very close to the camera and this shack is very far away. Instead, it actually appears that he is very large and this shack is very, very small, as if this character were a giant, which is not the idea I was trying to portray. So if that was what I was trying to get, then I would have done it right here. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the idea that he's standing very far away from this shack, and this shack is very, very far away from this town, right? And this doesn't portray that, because everything is happening on this same line. You have no depth. There's no perception that things are moving like this, right? The ground doesn't look like it's moving that direction. The ground just looks like it's stationary. Like there's just this plane of existence right here, and everything is happening on that plane up to the edge, and there's nothing beyond it, or this direction either. And that's very poor composition-wise. So in this image, I fixed that, right? You now have the horizon line here, which is still very evident. However, the shack is now below the horizon line. The man is even lower on the horizon line. You can't even see the bottom of the tree because it's closer, so it's much lower beyond this line. These rocks are not on the same plane as him, or the shack, or the tree, or the town, right? So it's much better in portraying the idea that there is in fact a distance between each of these objects here, right? So yes, that's been improved through that by simply expanding the distance between the camera and the horizon by, instead of placing everything on the horizon, space it out beyond and behind the horizon. So yeah, that's the second thing that I fixed. Another thing, and Mr. Fengzhu taught me this. I know I'm not pronouncing that correct. I apologize. Fengzhu? Mr. Feng has taught me this in one of his videos, is that if you take an object, say this tree, and you give it a relative size, right? So it's close to the camera and it's large, so compared to this guy, it's probably about this tall, right? Our eyes can pick that up because of these surroundings. However, if you want to know how much distance is between this point and this point in space, it's easy. You take this object and you repeat it right here. However, since this object here is now farther away, it's going to be much smaller. And you can do the same thing if you want to know the distance between this second point and this point, then you can do the same thing. You take this object, and if this is farther away, you make it smaller, but you draw the same object, because human eyes are very good, and the human brain is very good at seeing something. And then if there's the exact same object, or a very similar object, and it's much smaller, then our eyes and brain automatically assume that it must be farther away, because that's how distance appears to us, right? So I've replaced this strange ball, kind of cherry tree, I guess, sort of. I don't even know what this is really, with these more spiky trees, because if this is a desert, like these trees aren't going to have leaves or fruit because that would be a waste of their water resources. So it would be illogical to have a fruiting or flowering plant in such a dry and barren place like this. So that was just my reasoning behind that. Yeah. So then another thing I improved was the perspective. Here you can see the top of the roof. However, it is above the horizon line, which is impossible. If something is above your horizon line, then you're going to naturally see the bottom of it. And if it's below your horizon line, then you're going to see the top of whatever you're looking at. So I fixed this in this video. Now this is below the horizon line, so you'll see a little bit of the top, but not all of it, right? Excuse me. Yes, I did change the perspective a little bit on to the next thing, where this wall here seems absolutely massive in comparison to this. Like, you figure this city is already super far away from him, so these buildings must be ginormous, and there's this wall that's like halfway up this building. How tall is that wall? Like a mile? Or how massive must it be? Because the wall is obviously behind these buildings. You don't really know how far behind, but it's obviously very distant to them because these buildings are even just extremely vast distance between the character. So this wall would in fact probably be taller than the buildings if you compared them, right? So I fixed that in this, since the horizon line, I fixed that as I explained before. I made the walls smaller in comparison to the city because I didn't want this wall to appear massive, right? It's very, very far away, so it needs to be very, very small, but I still want it to be apparent, so I did exaggerate it slightly. Alright, so the next thing is I took these rocks and made them a lot more interesting, at least in my opinion. Right, we've got some strange shapes in here that are like shapes as if they've been worn away by wind erosion, really, is what these are. Oops, I did not want to do that. There we go. So yeah, I just made the rocks a little more interesting. And then another thing I did was I took this rock and kind of put his foot behind it, right? You can't see all of his foot or jacket right here because I wanted to show that this rock is not next to him, but it's in fact closer to the camera than he is. So yeah, that's just another thing I did. Another thing, I added shadows because I need to have some sort of light source, even if it is cloudy. There would more than likely be light coming either through here or through the actual clouds and being dispersed. So I just threw these shadows, even though they're not really correct. It still makes the piece seem more three-dimensional if there's shadows and shading on objects instead of just this matte kind of finish where all the colors are full saturation. So yeah. Another thing I added, he was actually in this picture, but it wasn't very apparent because, again, my colors were off. Or my tones, right? The mind word just completely left me. I apologize for that. The shades, I guess, were wrong, so you couldn't really make him out, but in this it's a little more apparent that there is in fact a man inside of this window. And if you look quite closely, I was actually aiming for him to kind of be hanging out of the window like this with a shotgun or something, some sort of weapon, just to show that it's a very rough and tumble kind of environment, that he has this bartering place that, whoops, that he has to protect very dearly from invaders. So So yes, I changed that. And then just other small details. I added some sort of creature here to bring more life to the piece, so there's not just these two people that have these great distance between them. I added this factory type building with these smoke things, smoke puffs billowing out of it. I'm not really sure what my motivation behind that was, but it's there now, so whatever. Yeah. So composition-wise, I changed the shading to make the closer objects appear darker. I changed the proportion to make this guy seem like he's actually standing closer to you rather than he is a giant. I used Feng's method and replicated this object a few times. There was actually one right here, but I didn't like it right there because it was too, I don't know, it seemed superimposed to be on the horizon line again. So I erased it and kind of blocked it in with this building. But yeah, I used that to show the distance, and that's pretty much it. I fixed the proportion, the perspective, and the shading. And it looks much, much better now than it did before. And that's just what I've learned in the past month by watching videos on YouTube and experimenting myself. But yeah, I feel like I've improved a lot, but I still have a very, very long way to go. I'm not even a tenth of where I want to be. But that's alright. Just keep practicing and you get better and better, and then one day, what do you know, you're working for a big company. At least that's what I hope will happen. And if it doesn't, that's alright. At least I still draw. But yeah, I hope this has helped you guys in any way, shape, or form. I know I'm not an expert, and I know that a lot of what I'm saying probably sounds like it's just coming from someone who has just learned it themselves, but that's because I have. I was just thinking that, hey, I managed to pick this up, and I know it's taken me a long time to figure out how to get this, so if I can pass that information on to someone else in whatever form, then my job is done. Yeah, I hope this was a relatively short video. I haven't been timing this one. Not like the last one, though, like half an hour. What was that? The anime face? Yeah, it's like half an hour long. But yeah, speaking of that, thank you for watching that, the 10 of you out there that watched it. I am grateful for each and every single one of you, because even though that was only 10 views, that was 10 more views than I had when I posted the video. So, yes, thank you. That's the reason I'm making this video right now, because I said if it got enough views, then I would make another one, and 10 is plenty in my book. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to like, and if you wouldn't mind terribly, just drop a subscribe down there. It would benefit me greatly, because, well, subscribers is how we live. It's like the juice that feeds my soul. It makes me feel good inside. So do it. No, I'm just joking. You don't have to. But it is greatly appreciated if you do. But yeah, thanks for watching. Until next time, Ganzor out.